Welcome back to the all-new updated Mastemon deck for BT23, which got a ton of new support. And today we got our friend Dan here piloting the deck, showcasing you guys on how this deck works with all the new cards together, playing against Mastemon right off the bat, which also got quite a bit of new support coming in. And here he is already starting second, but unfortunately doesn't look like the best hand either. Just only one Uko to work with, having to hard drop the older BT11 angewomon right off the bat, giving the opponent a ton of memory to work with. Not going to be able to go through security either, since it's not an on-play effect, it's only when digivolving. And with that amount of memory past the opponent, all they have to do is to set up, find their pieces, climb up to Mastemon, and they will be in a really good position, where Dan is in a pretty tight spot at this particular moment. With only one memory to work with as well, and only Uko, I can really only see two lines of play that Dan can make here. One is to either evo into the Master hard evo without DNA digivolving, which you're not going to gain the most benefits out of the effects. That way you can at least draw and cycle a card and then maybe have it control a little bit. Otherwise, hard dropping this Mirai here for the full 4 cost and setting up and hoping to see what you can do from there. But at this point, the Mastemon player is pretty much ready to go with like 2 delay option cards in the battle area that can be used to help him climb up even faster, going into first with the new Sistermon to cycle through security, using Master from Disciple to go into the older Savior Huck here, which then also be able to use the new option card Delay to play out another Sistermon, and then they can still climb into a Mastemon, no problem, and it's still going to be able to attack even if the memory passes over, because with the new Mastemon, if they have it, which they do, is going to be able to play out another Sistermon from hand or trash, which is absolutely insane. And then once something's played out, they can either choose to play the token, which is the Ethel Renee Poor 6000 DP, with like reboot, blocker, and decoy for it as well, and then swing as well, and then play out another Sistermon, do a ton of checks. Looks like they're going to go for Alliance with one of the Sistermon Blancs and the Ethel Renee Poor, which is going to go a total for 3 checks. Checks into a TK first, so resolving the TK effect, being able to grab the top card security, and then Dan gets to put something back underneath. And these are some important pieces. It doesn't look the greatest for Dan, honestly, at this moment. There's no ace counter for him at this moment to play around that crazy wide board, but then he's able to find a Amber memory boost, which is going to give quite a bit of value here, because now he might be able to go for a crazy play that you guys are about to see. He's going to clean up the board. Having that Amber memory boost is just perfect there. Gaining that 2 memory, now he's at 4. He's going to have the choice. He can hard drop that old Godamon from the starter deck to search first. And by doing so, he's going to be able to find and grab some pieces. But thanks to having the EX6 Mirai, he can suspend her to gain the memory back. Not necessarily needing to digivolve from the trash, because I don't think he has anything I can really digivolve from, but at least gaining that memory to keep turn is going to be important. Now, because the start at Godamon is just so good with its cost reduction of digivolving effect, he can go into ladydevimon. He's not going to grab anything back either. He doesn't really need to trash a card from his hand, but by doing so, he can now use the end of turn of either Mirai or Gado to DNA into a Maste. Looks like he's going to go into the promo one instead of the newer one, which I think the promo one is a little bit better because it has a lot more flexibility and removal, and it has a lot more value after it's established on the board. Because by doing so, he can get into it, can send the Mastemon into the security right away, just by doing that, as long as it's like DNA Digivolve. He gets to recover 1 as well, and by recovering 1, suspend the TK to keep the turn once again. And now he follows up with a Ruimo, wiping out all the other Sistermons afterwards, which is absolutely insane. He chose not to attack there because it makes sense, because of the Sistermons ever blocked, they can de-digivolve him and all that. So with the blanket 5k here, the Mastemon player is gonna have to restart all over again. And wow, what a crazy comeback. The opponent has no choice but to put down the Gankumon and go into a Ganku X in order to de-digivolve the Ruimo so that it can't get another blanket 5k the following turn. Now he gets to push out the Patamon, and then with Patamon, he doesn't really get to digivolve here, which is unfortunate, but that's okay, because now he can just hard evo normally. Ideally, I guess he could have like set up that Godamon if he had it earlier on with the TK there when he was checking the security, but otherwise I don't think there was. So then anyways, he's gonna go for a search, grab some pieces. There is a Dominimon that he can grab, which isn't bad either, because Dominimon works very well in this deck too. But looks like I think he's gonna opt in to go for the angewomon, which already has a copy, but by being able to continue the cycle and draw more cards by digivolving, he can easily just go into another Mastemon here. So he's gonna hard drop the angewomon, being able to grab the security to hand and then recover one. And because he recovered one, his gain one, draw one, gain a memory off Mirai for playing the angewomon, also being able to gain a memory of TK as well. Being able to trigger all those effects is just absolutely value. And now he can start DNA digivolving into the new Master, which we can see what it does. And it can probably maybe deal with this board a little bit, but the board is completely immune to Digimon effects on the opponent's side. So it is going to be tricky to deal with Ganko X. He has to be a little bit careful because usually when there's Ganko X here on the board and if you attack, they can go into a GX Ace. But I feel like he just wants to try to pressure as many bodies and try to get as much value off of it by playing as additional stuff. So he's going to go and play out the angewomon using the effect again just to cycle through the top security, which is equivalent to drawing a card and recovering. And then he's going to swing for 2 checks and alliancing together with the Mastemon, which is going to be at 19k. This is going to have more DP over the Jesmon GX Ace, so it's not going to be able to pop either the Mastemon there attacking. It can pop the angewomon on the side, otherwise it will pop the Gato if the opponent has it. Looks like the opponent is considering here because it is a very good opportunity to go into it anyways, and then they're going to be able to tuck a source from hand or trash. Looks like they're going to tuck a Gankumon from the hand to delete something, which again, it can't be the Mastemon because it has more DP than the Jesmon GX Ace. So it looks like they're going to go for the Gatomon. And then now the 2 checks is going to go through. Mastemon's alternate effect is going to proc to like put something back in security, but the only thing that Dan can really put is his own Digimon, and it looks like he doesn't really want to, just because by having that angewomon there, you can still play the Ace threat game with the older Mastemon Ace from EX6. And this is where the opponent is going to have to try to play around it, but this is a really, really tough spot to put the opponent in. Technically, the opponent does have lethal on board, so they're going to have to try to play around the Ace, but if they play around the Ace, as soon as they check into security or trash it off Jesmon GX Ace, Mastemon with the new one is going to be able to send that GX Ace back into security and gain Ace overflow and then stealing the turn off of that. So the opponent is going to have to think how they want to go and start attack here. Well, the thing is, if they choose to pop the Maste can also still have partition. And then if Dan does have the Ace, he was going to get into it anyways and steal the turn. So this is a really tricky spot for the opponent. Once again, they're going to have to make some gambling decisions. Looks like they're going to go for the attack anyways, and they decide to pop the Mastemon here. By doing so, we're going to resolve the effects first, because Jesmon's effect to delete comes first, which is a separate effect, and then now these are the new on-play triggers, which Dan will get to grab a card off security with angewomon, and guess what he found? As he trashed the security, this is where Ace counter timing, he actually top security, grabbed the Master Ace, which by the way is a one of in the deck, and now he's going to be able to DNA into it with an extremely clutch play. And because there's no more immunity on the opponent's side of the board, the Ethel Renee Poor token only has decoy. It doesn't prevent the GX Ace from leaving the battle area either. So by doing so, he definitely wants to tuck away the GX Ace, because that will be able to steal turn, play a body back, play out ladydevimon here, putting it to bomb security, overflow 5, stealing that turn completely, and the opponent is only left with a Huckmon and a token that is a blocker. Dan is now in the perfect position. I mean, guys, look at this crazy comeback. He's gonna now alliance for 2 checks, which the opponent will block with the Ethel Renee Poor. Now DNA into another Mastemon once again, play out another body, and then he can continue to attack if he needs to. Playing around that Jesmon GX Ace in the security is no problem at all, because thanks to having alliance, having the multiple checks together, and now with nothing left on the opponent's board, he finishes off with ladydevimon. What a crazy game 1 right here. Next game, facing off against Justimon, where Dan is going to be going second once again, and Justimon got quite a bit of new support cards with a new line and a bunch of like new promos from the tournament pack with all the different forms that it has. So it's kind of interesting to see how far this deck has come with all those new cards too, and how this matchup goes, which they kind of juggle a lot on the device cards and sort of control the board and get a lot of value off of that. So the opponent is going to Digivolve first in the Monodramon and start off just by basic searching, finding their pieces to climb the stack. Looks like they're just going for the traditional black base build, because there is other few ways I can play with this deck. Anyways, going to Dan's side, he can just go into the Patamon right away and then play out the old BT11 Mirai, and this is going to be one of the best setups, because we're going to showcase you guys how good the yellow Patamon yellow vaccine engine really is, and just goes so well together with Mastemon, because you just get so much value, so much memory, so much draw and consistency to really help turbo it up. getting that extra memory with Mirai at the start of the turn, and now going to push out the Patamon and Evo straight into the Gatomon. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to search off of it because it is an on-play effect, but just by being able to Digivolve still, you get to gain a memory and still draw a card and tuck a security back underneath, so that you can set yourself up for other potential future security manipulation plays in the following turns. One of the most important things when it comes to playing this yellow vaccine packaging engine is to, once you look at the security with Patamon's starter main effect, make sure to memorize the cards that are in there. Make sure to remember, because if you do, then you can easily go and climb up, such as going into this BT11 angewomon and now grab the other ladydevimon that you need, suspending the Mirai so that he can now play out a ladydevimon for free from the hand. Not going to be able to utilize the on-play effect to delete anything that's level 4 or lower, but that's totally fine. Ultimately, that is to gain an additional memory off the angewomon and still keeping turn. And now he's going to be able to play out a Gatomon to fetch for a search, which he is missing a Mastemon piece, which is rather unfortunate. But just to end off the turn, he plays out another EX6 Gato, hoping to find what he needs. Unfortunately, only just grabbing the EX6 Mirai there and passing the turn with a board. However, you can always still play it as you threaten the potential Mastemon ace. It looks like the opponent is missing a piece here anyway, so they have to go for a black memory boost to grab themselves a Justimon and then crack their other black memory boost in order to Digivolve into it for the 3 cost. And they're not going to really get most out of it here. They can choose to either give it protection, otherwise they might consider going for an attack, and then they might still need to consider to keep that one option card on the board as delay in case of anything happens. So it looks like they're not going to gain immunity here, which was kind of correct because they're going to go for that swing, and because it would be removed from the battle area, they can use the Cyberdramon protection to trash their own option card there, which is going to be that black memory boost play that turn, that way keeping them still alive. Mastemon is 13k, which is still a pretty beefy chunky body when it comes to hitting it from security, but that's all they're going to be able to do here. Digivolve in the back and then pass turns just like that with a Justimon that's suspended. That doesn't really do too much. They can't block, it doesn't have reboot either, so Dan is pretty in a good spot where he can choose on how he wants to sequence the attacks, whether he can go a little bit aggressive, a little greedy, and start attacking with his level 5s first or not if he wants to, but he's going to go for the angewomon here just to grab a piece and then cycle back once again. And by recovering, he's going to be able to gain a memory of Patamon, draw a card of Toko as well, which is just really fantastic. And by doing so, he's now be able to find the second Mastemon that he can have a choice to utilize on which one he wants to. It is his best interest to try to get this Justimon out of the way, but either way, it looks like he was considering maybe he wants to go for an attack just to be a bit more aggressive. But the thing is, like Angewomon, ladydevimon, their DPs are not that high, so you really want to prioritize just DNA Digivolving, go into the Mastemon, go for the safe play either way first. And now you're going to play out another body, which is going to be another new angewomon once again. By DNAing, you also get to reset all your inherited effects so that with Patamon and Tokomon, you get to use them all over again. He's going to trash the security of both players until there's 3 left, and then now using the alternates of Mastemon to send that Justimon away since it has no protection, and then finish it off by resolving the angewomon's effect to grab a card from the security, and then now gain 1, draw 1 like I mentioned, and start attacking already. Unfortunately, there's no alliance here to deal additional checks, but that's okay. He's sitting in a pretty good spot because now all he has to do is just end the turn with a ruin mode, which will completely lock the opponent out from being able to play because they can't push up the Strike Dramon. It's just immediately going to get incinerated. So the opponent can, all they can do is just play out a Rio, setting up a Tamer, which is a little bit too late, go into Cyber Dramon, and then now with Mirai once again, gain 1 memory constantly regardless, which is absolutely insane. Push out Patamon, look at security. Doesn't really matter here just because he can just go for all-out attacks, but he is going to Digivolve into ladydevimon. He could grab a piece back, but he doesn't need that Mastemon necessarily, so he's just going to go for a DNA play here to recover 1, also putting his own Mirai back to the bottom of his security, which is pretty cool, so that he can trash the opponents, and then now using the second effect to trash his own security to play out another body. Once again, cycling all this, gaining a ton of memory, drawing a bunch of cards. Wow. You guys can see why the yellow vaccine version is just so good. Go for Alliance 2 checks, ruin mode finishes off. This game, we're going to up the challenge and see if we can face against Gallantmon, which is one of the stronger decks in the format. If not, I think it's probably one of the best decks in the format as well, just because of the crazy OTKs and the damage that can do as it clears the board. But Mastemon has control. If they can control the momentum, Mastemon can actually deal out quite a bit of damage as well in comparison quite early. And once again, we're going to show you guys Just why the yellow vaccine and Patamon engine is just so good for this deck. And Dan has quite a few options here. He could have played the EX6 Mirai, he could hard drop this BT11 Mirai, or play the Gato EX6 just to put the opponent to 1 and find some cards. But establishing the BT11 Mirai is just always really good payoff, honestly, because once by doing so, he can climb all the way up into a Mastemon so quickly. The opponent is going to go for an early chip here. It looks like they weren't able to find a Growlmon to go into the Growl X in particular to float. But this is where it's time for Dan to shine once again. Push out Pata, finding the Gato once again, which is going to be the star deck one. Being able to place the security back, and then also gaining a ton of value once again, which I've been saying this entire video. Gain 1 memory, draw a card, as well as Digi-evolving into a ladydevimon for 2 cost less, so that it's only going to pay 1. And now with its effect, he can toss away a card to grab a Mastemon, which he is missing, that was checked into security, and grabbing the Mastemon Ace, with Mirai playing out angewomon here, and then gaining a memory of Lady Devi, cycling through security to grab more cards, and now all he has to really do is actually just DNA into the Ace one himself preemptively. You don't always need to wait for Blast DNA Digivolve counter timing to go into it. You can always preemptively do it yourself, because it has a really powerful effect of being able to play that ladydevimon back out, and then you can just send that Guilmon to the bottom security and trashing the opponent until they have 4 left. And those 2 cards are really good trash, hitting the Jackraid and hitting the Growlmon right there. They're both restricted down to 1, and all he has to do is Alliance for 2 checks. The opponent has no egg hatch in the following turn. They only have a red memory boost, and all he has to do is play out this Gatomon to search and grab another piece, but that is for mainly to put the opponent to 1 memory and pressuring lethal in this turn, and that's how fast Mastemon can actually deal damage. And honestly, the Ace one has really showcased quite a bit of MVP-ness in this whole video of how good it really is. I mean, like, from Blast Digi-evolving to countering to doing it preemptively yourself here, there's nothing the opponent can really do now at this point. What can they do with that 1 Guilmon? Can they possibly climb into a Gil X? They're gonna have to get a lot of memory off of it too. By going into this Growl X and passing turn, perhaps they might have a War Growl Ace that they can be threatening against Dan in particular. But either way, I feel like Dan could just swing either way, and then by swinging so that he can actually just sort of play from there, just because it is usually just a one of, and yeah, hitting into a scramble, so the opponent allows, meaning that they don't have an answer here. Perhaps they might have an answer from the search, but nope, looks like that's it. And look how fast that Mastemon can finish the game off. The Twilight Angels playmat and dice is now live on the Evolve store. Make sure to grab them along together with the collection so you get additional memory markers all together. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. You guys have a great day, great night, whenever you are. See you in the next video, and this is AVAULT signing